Folks, grab your wallets, hide your savings, and brace yourselves, because the economic roller coaster is back, and guess who's driving? Yep, the government. Here at Boss Economics World, we're not just here to break down the numbers, we're here to expose the clowns in charge who keep tanking our economy while pretending they've got it all under control. Today, we're diving into Britain's so-called retail revival, the tariff tornado courtesy of Donald Trump, and, spoiler alert, how the Labour government's mismanagement is setting us up for a recession-sized faceplant. Let's get into it. Oh, look, everyone. The Office for National Statistics, ONS, is waving its pom-poms, cheering that UK retail sales in Q1 2025 were the best since 2021, up a whopping 1.6% for the quarter. March 2025 alone saw retail volumes rise by 0.4%, smashing expectations of a 0.4% drop. Sounds like a party, right? Well, hold the champagne, because this boom is about as stable as a house of cards in a windstorm. What's behind this so-called retail renaissance? Record-breaking sunshine in March 2025, according to the Met Office, which apparently turned Brits into shopaholics, boosting non-food sales, like clothing, by 1.7%. But let's be real here, this isn't a sign of economic strength, it's a weather-induced sugar high. As Alex Kerr from Capital Economics pointed out, March 2025's rise was largely due to unusually sunny weather. Translation: people bought shorts and sunglasses because the sun came out, not because the economy is suddenly thriving. And here's the kicker. Consumer confidence tanked in April 2025, with GfK's Consumer Confidence Index dropping 4 points to -23, the weakest under the Labour government. Meanwhile, the British Retail Consortium's forward-looking survey plummeted to -48 in April from -35 in March. So, while the government pats itself on the back for a sunny March, the real story is that households are battening down the hatches, terrified of what's coming next. Now, let's peel back the layers of this economic onion and see what's really going on. From the micro to the macro, here are the issues, point to surface, that are setting the UK up for a spectacular economic crash, all while the government fumbles the ball. First, let's talk about the little guy, you, me, and every Brit trying to pay their bills. April 2025 hit households like a freight train, with a barrage of price hikes that would make even Scrooge wince. Council tax, energy bills, stamp duty, road tax, you name it, it went up. According to Ofgem, the average household energy bill rose by 10% in April 2025, adding £149 annually to the average bill. Meanwhile, the average council tax bill jumped by 5.1%, or £106 per household, per data from the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. And that's not all. Businesses got slammed too, with payroll taxes and the minimum wage shooting up in April 2025. The national living wage rose by 9.8% to £11.44 per hour, according to the Low Pay Commission, which sounds great for workers, until you realize businesses are passing those costs on to consumers or cutting jobs to cope. Just look at the hospitality sector. The British Beer and Pub Association reported in April 2025 that 1 in 4 pubs are at risk of closure due to rising costs, with 500 pubs already shuttered in the past year alone. So, while March's sunshine tricked us into buying flip-flops, April's bill hikes reminded us why we're all broke. GfK's Neil Bellamy nailed it. Consumers are grappling with multiple April 2025 cost increases, and hearing dire warnings of renewed high inflation. Confidence isn't just low, it's in the gutter, at -23, the weakest in 17 months. Zoom out, and the picture gets even uglier. Enter Donald Trump and his tariff tantrum. In April 2025, Trump slapped a fresh wave of tariffs on global imports, including a 25% tariff on British goods, according to the US Trade Representative. This couldn't have come at a worse time for the UK, already reeling from Labour's tax hikes and bill increases. The Confederation of British Industry, CBI, warned in April 2025 that these tariffs could cost UK exporters £10 billion annually, with sectors like whisky, automotive, and textiles hit hardest. And what's Labour's response? Chancellor Rachel Reeves is in Washington, begging for a tariff truce while suggesting the US take its trade war with China to multilateral organizations, like the WTO. Oh, brilliant. Because nothing screams leadership like outsourcing your problems to a bureaucracy that moves slower than a snail on sedatives. Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey echoed this limp suggestion, proving once again that our policymakers are more interested in finger-pointing than fixing anything. Meanwhile, back home, Labour's tax hikes are strangling the private sector. The latest S&P Global/CIPS Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, for April 2025 showed the private sector contracting, with the PMI falling to 49.1, a reading below 50 signals contraction. This is a body blow to Labour's so-called growth agenda, especially after GDP surged in February 2025. But let's not kid ourselves, that GDP surge was a blip, fueled by one-off factors like sunny weather, not a sign of sustainable growth. Now, let's talk about the Bank of England, BOE, which is walking a tightrope between inflation and recession. Money markets are betting on a quarter-point interest rate cut in May 2025, but the BOE is hesitant, and for good reason. Inflation is rearing its ugly head again, thanks to Trump's tariffs and Labor's cost hikes. The BOE's own forecasts, updated in April 2025, project inflation hitting 3.5% by year-end, well above the 2% target. But here's the catch: if the BOE cuts rates too aggressively, it risks fueling inflation further, especially with imported goods getting pricier due to tariffs. If it holds rates steady, it risks choking off the fragile recovery in consumer spending. Damned if they do, damned if they don't, and guess who pays the price? You, the taxpayer, as your mortgage rate stays sky high and your grocery bill climbs faster than a rocket. Now, let's get to the juicy part: how the Labour government is taking a bad situation and making it catastrophic. Remember, folks, this is the same Labour Party that promised economic stability when they took power in summer 2024. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. First, Labour's tax hikes are a masterclass in economic self-sabotage. The Resolution Foundation reported in April 2025 that Labour's tax increases, totaling £23 billion annually, are the largest in a single fiscal year since 1993. These hikes, including rises in employer national insurance contributions and capital gains tax, are crushing businesses just as they're trying to recover from the tariff shock. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, warned that these policies risk pushing the UK into a stagflationary spiral: high inflation, low growth, and rising unemployment. Second, Labour's spending spree is doing nothing to boost long-term growth. Instead of investing in productivity-enhancing infrastructure, they're funneling cash into short-term gimmicks like green energy subsidies that won't pay off for decades, if ever. The National Audit Office reported in April 2025 that Labour's £8 billion Green Prosperity Plan has so far created just 5,000 jobs, at a cost of £1.6 million per job. Compare that to the US, where Biden's Inflation Reduction Act has created 170,000 jobs at a fraction of the cost per job, for the US Department of Energy. And third, Labour's failure to tackle structural issues, like the UK's chronic underinvestment in skills and innovation, is setting us up for long-term decline. The UK ranks 28th out of 38 OECD countries for business investment as a share of GDP, according to 2024 OECD data. Instead of addressing this, Labour is busy playing whack-a-mole with short-term crises, all while the economy's foundations crumble. Here's the bottom line, folks: the UK economy is a ticking time bomb, and Labour is holding the detonator. The retail boom in Q1 2025 was a mirage, fueled by sunshine, not substance. Consumer confidence is collapsing, businesses are buckling under tax hikes, and Trump's tariffs are the cherry on top of this economic dumpster fire. The data doesn't lie. The IMF downgraded its 2025 UK growth forecast in April 2025 to just 0.6%, the lowest among G7 economies. Unemployment is projected to rise to 4.8% by year-end, per the Office for Budget Responsibility (OBR), as businesses cut jobs to cope with rising costs. And with inflation set to hit 3.5%, the BOE's hands are tied, leaving households and businesses to fend for themselves. So, what's the solution? First, Labour needs to ditch its tax and spend obsession and focus on growth. Slash payroll taxes, incentivize business investment, and negotiate a real trade deal with the US, not just polite chit-chat in Washington. Second, the BOE needs to get creative, using targeted measures like credit easing to support small businesses, rather than relying on blunt interest rate cuts. And third, we, the people, need to hold this government accountable. Because if we don't, we're headed for a recession that'll make the 2008 crash look like a picnic. That's all for today, folks. If you're as fed up as I am with this economic circus, smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video. And remember, here at Boss Economics World, we don't just report the news, we call out the clowns making the mess. See you next time.